And what was the bone of contention? The bone of
Arunji,
contention was
I'm sorry.
I'll just finish it.
Yeah.
The bone of contention was that Nehru did not want Purushottam Das Tandon to speak on the plight of Hindus which they had suffered during the partition. So this is how the things have been going on within Congress.
Arunji, this is the facet I want to talk to you about. That, you know, the moment you mention certain uncomfortable facts about history and the manner in which the country was run largely by the Congress party, which was in power after independence, the argument that comes in is that there is an attempt to demonize the icons of the Congress party. There's an attempt to take over history. There's an attempt to rewrite the history which is factually incorrect. And somewhere, I think the opposition, of course, because these are uncomfortable questions for them, is not ready to face these questions head on. It's called the demonization project without really getting into the merits of the debate.
I think you have raised a very pertinent point. And see, the problem is that the left and the Congress, they colluded throughout 1950s, 60s. If you look at the names of the HRD ministers, which were posted right from the beginning and the way JNU was set up.
Yeah.
So this whole story has been told many times, but I'm just recalling it. So if you look at the education ministers or the human resource development ministers, throughout we had people who were, even within Congress, when they were within Congress, they were left of the center.
Yeah.
So it was a joint project which was going on. And now the problem is, as I mentioned, that Congress doesn't know its own history. Like I'll just add in 30 seconds, I'll just add another nugget. Rahul Gandhi started Bharat Jodo Yatra from Kanyakumari, and the gentleman did not visit Vivekanand Smarak there, which his grandmother Indira Gandhi had visited, which is the biggest symbol of Bharat Jodo, and it was set up by basically an RSS Pracharak, and Indira Gandhi visited there, and Indira Gandhi had written in the visitors book all praise and one of the greatest connecting symbols for India, and this is how they deal with their history.
Chandrachur Ghose, I'm coming to you, and we're talking about these uncomfortable facets of history which we've never been taught, which we've not spoken about. Anuj pointed out to some glaring things that happened during the transfer of power. Limited amount of evidence, of course, has come in the public domain, but this evidence indicates a lot of things which have not been revealed so far. But talking about the manner in which history has been framed, or the legacy of a leader like Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose has been celebrated, and he's not the only figure which many would argue has been ignored. There are many other freedom fighters, in fact the prime ministers that we have had in this country, apart from Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, Indira Gandhi, who many would argue have not been celebrated enough. To correct that history and understanding of history and not get into demonization, what is the way forward? What is your understanding as a historian?
See, the first thing is that everything should be brought out in the public domain. And that is where, and nobody wants to demonize any particular leader or any political party just without reason. And if the process of transparency, when it begins, if it puts particular leaders or particular parties in a particular light, then one can't help it. The question, therefore, is, I will add another question. Why did it have to be a non-Congress government in 1998 to declassify the INA files, the files related to the Indian National Army? So the INA was wrapped up in 1945, and the files related to them were declassified by the National Front government in 1998. What prevented the Congress party to put them in the National Archives out to the scholars? When Anuj and we started the transparency campaign related to Netaji and Lal Bahadur Shastri as well. But our focus has been on Netaji. And whenever we asked for information, the stock answer from the Congress government, the UP government at that time, was that if we release documents on Netaji, it will harm our relations with foreign governments and create internal disturbance. So, why was
Chandrachur, what according to you can the government do more when it comes to legacy of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose? Because I want to take that question to Nalin S Kohli as well.
Yeah, I was both Anuj and I were talking to Anand about it, and we said that the Mission Netaji campaign that we run, both of us, half of our dream has been achieved today. And we are grateful to Prime Minister Modi for that. And now the other half remains, where the burning question is there has to be a closure on the question of his fate. And whatever has been told, just like fairy tale has been passed off in the name of history by the previous Congress governments for so many decades, for the 7.5 decades, the fairy tale that Netaji died in 1945 in a plane crash is also fairy tale. And the stalwart ministers in the current government also argued in favor of that. There was no death. Netaji did not die.
Yeah.
So the question is, that has to be settled. That question, the truth has to be told. We have, through our research, put forth all the evidence that points conclusively that he did not die. Now, there has to be a government stand on it. The government cannot evade or close its eyes. It has to close that issue, bring out the truth, how much ever uncomfortable it is, even if there is apprehension that it will create some sort of disturbance among people. I believe people of our country are mature enough, and with the flow of information, we live in the information age. We don't live in the 50s and 60s anymore that there will be riots and people will
people can handle uncomfortable information. Nalin Kohli, there are many things, and these are two historians, these are two people who have worked for the cause of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, Chandrachur Ghose and Anusha, and both are saying that there's so much more that needs to be done, especially the controversy around the death of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. At least this government, with the mandate that it has, can really settle these uncomfortable questions that all of us want an answer of.
That's a tough one, honestly. And I'd say that, being a lawyer, also in public life, sometimes things, we look for closure, and sometimes closure is a new opening, which is anything but closure. That's why I said that's a tough one.
Nananji, I have seen you in court, in Supreme Court very often. I would not allow you the play of words. You'd have to answer that question point blank.
No,
Nalin, we are pinning our hopes on you. I mean, no, you have brought us the closest. Last 75 years, this is the best government for us. Modi ji is our best chance.
What is stopping this government, Nalin?
We are just hoping it brings 7 years, 8 years.
No, I don't know. See, in fairness, I can't answer that in fairness and in honesty because I don't know. After all, there are things, there is a system in the West in terms of declassifying, which is what you were referring to, and we are all aware. I'm a student of history, so I appreciate the inputs coming from any historian or anyone who works on subjects of history. So therefore, that's one part. The second is a larger part which involves continuing relationships with foreign countries. So that's a second part to it. And my guess is, and that I'm wearing my legal hat, not a political one. My guess is that any answer that looks at it, because here there is assumedly, of what we have read in history, correct or incorrect, is that multiple international events are linked to the last flight or the last movement or the travels of Netaji. So that could be perhaps a reason, but we have to leave it to the wisdom of the government. But what I can say about Prime Minister Modi's government is, and which is evident today, is that Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose is being recognized and finally being acknowledged as never before, and quite rightfully. And this is to be true for every son or daughter of India.
I'm sure